At family brunch, my aunt asked if I'm still making excuses, and my dad sighed like tired. The word excuses landed on the table harder than the cutlery, and for a second, I swear the whole cafe went quiet in my head. My aunt said it with that bright, joking tone people use when they want to stab you, but still be able to claim they were just asking. She had her chin tipped up, glossy lipstick, fork hovering midair like she was the one being patient with me. My dad didn't even look at me when he sighed, just let out this long breath through his nose and stared at the menu like it suddenly held the answers to everything. His shoulders dropped like he'd been carrying something heavy all morning, and the sigh came out like tired, like finally, here we go. I felt my face heat up. I could feel my pulse in my throat. My hands tightened around my coffee cup, so hard the ceramic burned my fingers, and I still didn't let go, because if I let go, I thought I might do something stupid like shake. The table smelled like maple syrup and someone else's perfume and the faint sting of sanitizer. There was jam on the edge of my plate I hadn't touched. I didn't want any of it anymore. I just wanted to disappear without making a scene, which, ironically, was exactly the kind of thing my family would call an excuse. I tried to answer like a normal person. I really did. I opened my mouth, and what came out was this pathetic little laugh that sounded wrong in my own ears, like a cough pretending to be humor. Excuses for what? I said too softly. My aunt's eyes flicked to my dad like she expected backup, and my dad did another smaller sigh, the kind that says, please don't escalate, but it also said, please don't make me defend you. My mom was scrolling her phone like she was determined to be anywhere else. My cousin across from me raised her eyebrows and looked down into her mimosa like she suddenly found it fascinating. The waiter walked past with a tray of plates, and I watched the eggs wobble, bright yellow, and had this weird thought. I could stand up right now, walk out, and none of them would follow. The thought was so sharp it actually calmed me for half a second. It was supposed to be just brunch. That was the whole pitch. Casual. Mum texted. No drama, just food. And I fell for it, because I always fall for it. My family is very good at branding an event as harmless and then acting shocked when it becomes a tribunal. Brunch happens at the same place most months. This bright little cafe near the shopping strip with white tables, noisy coffee machines, and those fake plants that collect dust. It's where my aunt likes to be seen, where my mom likes the idea of us sitting together looking like a functional family, and where my dad can disappear behind a newspaper or a menu and pretend he's not emotionally involved. I've been debating whether to go all week, but I'd already declined the last 2 casual invitations, and Mom started doing that thing where she says, it would mean a lot to your father. Translation: if I don't show up, Dad will be in a mood, and then Mom will have to deal with him, and that will be my fault too. Also, and this is important, I miss the version of my dad that exists when nobody is pressing his buttons. I miss him when he's just a person and not a disappointed audience member. I keep thinking if I show up enough, if I'm agreeable enough, he'll remember how to be on my side. It's embarrassing to admit, but that's where my brain goes. If I'm good, they'll be kind. I'm 32 years old and still doing this little kid math. The excuses thing wasn't random. It wasn't just my aunt being spicy for entertainment. It was about the fact that I'm not where my family thinks I should be. I didn't fall apart in a dramatic way. I didn't have a viral meltdown. I didn't get arrested or blow up my life. I just slowed down. And in my family, slowing down is suspicious. Last year, I left a job I'd had for 6 years. Not because I was lazy, not because I wanted a break, but because my body and brain started doing things I couldn't control. Panic attacks in the bathroom. Migraines that made my vision go fuzzy. This constant chest-tightening dread, like I was always late for something, even when I was sitting still. I'd stare at my computer screen, and my mind would just slide off it. I'd drive home and realize I couldn't remember the last 10 minutes of the trip. I started sleeping at weird times. I stopped answering friends. I'd sit on the shower floor because standing felt like too much. When I told my GP, she asked me questions in this calm, clinical voice, and by the end, I was crying in a way that surprised me, like my body finally found someone safe enough to fall apart in front of. The official words were burnout and anxiety and later depression. Words my family hears as moral judgments. Words my aunt translates to excuses. I tried to keep working through it for months because I knew what my family would say. I tried to fix myself quietly, like a stain you scrub before anyone sees. Therapy at lunch breaks. Meds I hid in my bag. Breathing exercises in my car. I kept thinking I could patch it up and no one would have to know. But it got worse before it got better, and eventually I resigned because I was making mistakes and I was terrified I'd cost someone money or safety or both. My boss wasn't cruel about it, which almost made it harder. He said, "Take care of yourself." And I nodded like a polite adult while inside I was screaming because taking care of myself felt like a luxury I hadn't earned. Since then, I've been doing freelance work and part-time shifts where I can. Enough to pay rent. Enough to keep afloat. Not enough to impress my relatives at brunch. To them, it looks like I gave up. It looks like I'm still not back on my feet. It looks like I'm wasting potential. They don't see the progress because progress looks boring. Showing up to therapy. Taking meds consistently. Going for a walk even when your brain is screaming that you're a failure. Sending one email you've been avoiding for 3 days. Getting through a grocery shop without feeling like the fluorescent lights are attacking you. That doesn't translate into a LinkedIn update, so it doesn't count in my family. So when my aunt asked if I'm still making excuses, what she was really asking was, are you still refusing to perform success in a way that makes me comfortable? She leaned back in her chair like she'd offered a helpful observation. I just mean, she added, still smiling. It's been a while, hasn't it? My dad did that sigh again, softer, and said, let's not, but he didn't finish. He never finishes. He starts a sentence like he wants to be reasonable, then stops because being reasonable would require taking a position, and taking a position might make someone angry, and Dad hates anger like it's a contagious disease. He'd rather let me absorb it. I could feel my heart beating in my fingertips. I forced my shoulders down like my therapist taught me. I'm working, I said, just differently right now. Aunt Karen's eyebrows lifted. Differently, she repeated, like it was a cute word I'd invented. So, still excuses. My cousin made a small, choking noise in her drink that could have been a laugh or could have been discomfort. Mom looked up from her phone just long enough to give me a look that said, please don't. Not, are you okay? Not, that was rude. Just please don't. I tried to smile. It's not an excuse, I said, keeping my voice even. It's health. Aunt Karen's smile widened, and it was the kind of smile that always looks friendly until you're the one it's aimed at. We all get stressed, she said. We all get tired. But adults still show up. Something in my chest went tight. My dad's eyes flicked to me for the first time, quick and wary, like he could sense me tipping. I said I did show up, until I couldn't. Dad sighed again, heavier. There it was. The sound of tired, like I was draining him just by existing. Like he'd already decided the conversation was a burden and not, his actual child being spoken to like garbage. And that was the moment my anger finally found words. I put my cup down carefully because I didn't trust my hands. Dad, I said, and my voice came out low but clear. Why are you sighing like I'm the problem? Silence is a weird thing in a cafe. It doesn't really happen, but it happened at our table. The clinking and chatter kept going around us, but in that little circle it felt like someone turned the volume down. Dad stared at me. Mom froze. Aunt Karen's lips parted like she'd been waiting for this, like she wanted me to snap so she could point and say, see? Dad's face flushed. I'm not, he started. You are, I said, and my voice shook a little, which made me furious because shaking always gets weaponized against me. You're sighing like I'm exhausting, but you're not saying anything to her. Mom hissed my name like a warning. Aunt Karen laughed lightly. Oh my God, she said. Are we really doing this over brunch? And that sentence, over brunch, made something in me go cold. Because it was never over brunch when she asked. It was never over brunch when she mocked. It only becomes over brunch when I respond. The moment I stop being polite, suddenly I'm ruining something. I looked at her. You asked me a question, I said. I answered. No, you got defensive, she said, and now her tone had shifted too. Still smiling but sharper underneath. Like always. That's what I mean. You always have a reason. I felt my eyes sting, and I hated it. I blinked hard. Yes, I said quietly. I have a reason. That's how reality works. Dad rubbed his forehead like he had a headache. Can we not? He muttered. There was again, can we not? Not, Karen, stop. Not, leave him alone. Just can we not? Like the existence of conflict is the problem, not the person causing it. I sat back and stared at my plate. My food looked untouched and suddenly disgusting. I could feel the old reflex rising, the one that says stop talking, apologize, fix the atmosphere, make everyone comfortable. I could practically hear my mom's voice from childhood. Don't make it awkward. But another voice, quieter, newer, said, if you swallow this again, it's going to poison you later. And I was so tired of being poisoned in private, so everyone else could enjoy brunch in public. So I said, I'm not doing this anymore. Mom's eyes widened. Doing what? She asked too quickly. Being the family project, I said, and my throat tightened. Being the one you all get to discuss like I'm not sitting here. Being the punchline, so you can feel better about yourselves. Aunt Karen scoffed. Oh, please, she said. Nobody's using you as a punchline. You're just what? I asked, and my voice rose slightly despite my efforts. Just too sensitive? Just too dramatic? Just making excuses. Dad shifted in his seat, uncomfortable, but still didn't say her name. That detail mattered. It hit me like a small, precise hurt. Dad wouldn't even speak her name in conflict. He'd rather speak mine. Mom leaned forward, voice low and urgent. You're making a scene, she whispered. I laughed, short and sharp. I'm sitting in a chair, I said. She's the one interrogating me. Aunt Karen's smile disappeared. Interrogating, she repeated, offended. Wow. Okay. So now I can't ask how you're doing. You didn't ask how I'm doing, I said. You asked if I'm still making excuses. That's not concern. That's a verdict. My cousin across the table stared at her hands. She looked like she wanted to vanish. I suddenly felt guilty for dragging her into it, and that guilt made me even angrier, because why am I always the one managing everyone else's comfort, even when I'm the one being hurt? Dad finally spoke, voice tight. Karen, he said, and for a second my heart lifted like, finally. But then he added, just drop it. Drop it. Not apologize. Not take it back. Just drop it like a piece of trash on the floor. Aunt Karen shrugged theatrically. Fine, she said. I'll drop it. I was only trying to help. You know I worry. I looked at Dad. Do you worry? I asked. Dad's eyes flicked up to mine, and I saw something there I didn't expect. Not anger, not annoyance, fear. Like he was scared of answering honestly. He exhaled. I don't know what to do, he admitted quietly. And that hit me harder than the sighs. Because suddenly the sighs weren't just contempt. They were helplessness. He'd been sighing like tired because he didn't know how to hold this conversation without it turning into war, and he'd rather sigh than choose a side. Which is still choosing a side, by the way. Silence is a side, but understanding it didn't make it sting less. It just made it more complicated. Mom jumped in immediately, like she couldn't stand complexity. We all want what's best for you, she said, voice sugary. We just want you to get back on track. Back on track. Like my life is a train, and they're the station managers. Histoire de hair. What track? I asked. The track where I pretend I'm fine until I collapse again? The track where I work myself into the ground so Aunt Karen can stop being embarrassed by me at brunch. Mom's face tightened. Don't put words in my mouth, she snapped. I'm not, I said, and my voice went quiet again. I'm putting reality in the air. You just don't like how it sounds. Aunt Karen leaned forward slightly, eyes bright. Maybe if you spent less time in therapy and more time actually doing something, she started. That sentence, less time in therapy, made my stomach flip. I felt my body shift into fight or flight, so hard my hands tingled. I stood up. My chair scraped loudly, and a couple people at nearby tables glanced over. Mom's eyes went wide with horror, like I just spilled something on the floor. Sit down, she hissed. No, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. I'm done. Dad looked up. Don't, he said quietly, and it sounded like a plea. I looked at him and felt my throat tighten. I can't keep doing this, I said softer. I came to eat. I came to be normal. But you all need me to be the problem, so you don't have to look at your own stuff. Mom's face flushed red. That's not fair, she whispered. I nodded slowly. Maybe, I said, but it's true. I grabbed my jacket and my bag. My cousin finally looked up, eyes wide, and whispered, "I'm sorry," like she didn't know what else to do. I nodded at her, because I didn't want her to feel responsible for this. She isn't. As I turned to leave, Aunt Karen said, loud enough to follow me, running away again. Typical. I paused. My entire body wanted to spin back and unload every stored-up sentence I'd swallowed since childhood. I could have said 1,000 things. About how she judges everyone while her own marriage is a Cold War. About how help from her always tastes like humiliation. About how she's been calling me sensitive since I was a kid because it was easier than admitting she was cruel. Instead, I turned slightly and said, very calmly, "This isn't running away. This is leaving a place where I'm not respected." Then I walked out. Outside, the air felt too bright. My hand was shaking so hard I had to grip my car keys with both hands to get them steady. I sat in my car and stared straight ahead while my heartbeat hammered in my ears. I kept expecting my mom to burst out the door and demand I come back, or for my dad to follow and apologize, or anyone, to choose me out loud. No one came. I waited longer than I want to admit. 5 minutes. 10. The cafe door opened and closed as strangers came and went, laughing, carrying takeaway cups, living their lives. My family stayed inside with their pancakes and their concern and their carefully managed silence. The first tears came in this hot, humiliating rush. Not dramatic sobbing, just this quiet leaking like my body finally realized it didn't have to hold itself together anymore. I wiped my face with the sleeve of my jacket like a teenager and laughed under my breath, because of course this is what I do. Cry alone in a car, so nobody has to see the mess. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom, "You embarrassed your father. Call me." That was it. Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "That got out of hand." Just, "You embarrassed your father." I stared at it until the words blurred. Then I locked my phone and put it face down. Another buzz a minute later. "Dad, this time. Are you home?" My chest tightened. That was the closest thing to care he could manage. Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I should have said something." Just, "Are you home?" Like he wanted to make sure I didn't crash the car in my emotional state, but still couldn't cross the line into saying he'd failed me. I typed back, "I'm safe. I need space." Then I drove. The thing is, I didn't leave brunch because I'm fragile. I left because I'm tired of being strong in the wrong direction. I'm tired of bending myself into whatever shape makes my family comfortable. I'm tired of taking punches disguised as jokes and then being blamed for having bruises. When I got home, my partner was on the couch reading. She looked up and immediately sat up straighter because she knows my face. "Bad?" she asked. I dropped my bag by the door and stood there like my body forgot what to do next. "They did the excuses thing," I said, and my voice cracked on the word like it had teeth. She opened her arms, and I walked into them, and the moment her hands pressed into my back, I felt my body finally exhale. I didn't even realize I'd been holding tension in my shoulders until it released like a snapped rubber band. We sat there for a while. I told her what happened, piece by piece. I tried to make it funny at first. Brunch court was in session, but the humor kept dying in my throat because it wasn't funny. It was the same pattern I've been living in since I was old enough to have opinions. Someone pokes, I react, then everyone calls my reaction the problem. Later that afternoon, Dad called. I stared at the screen until my partner said gently, "Answer if you want. Don't if you don't." I answered because, I don't know. Hope is a bad habit. Dad's voice sounded tired, real tired this time, not theatrical. "You home?" he asked again. "Yes," I said. He paused. I could hear cafe noise in the background still, like he'd stepped outside. "Your mom's upset," he said. I almost laughed. "I know." Another pause. "Karen shouldn't have said that," he admitted, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. My throat tightened immediately. "Why didn't you say something?" I asked. I tried to keep my voice steady, but there was a tremor anyway. Dad exhaled. "I didn't want it to blow up," he said. "It blew up anyway," I said, and the hurt sat in my mouth like metal. It just blew up on me. Dad was silent long enough that I thought he might hang up. Then he said, "I'm sorry." I closed my eyes. 2 words. Simple, late, but real. "I'm not trying to be difficult," I said, and I hated that I still felt the need to justify myself even now. I'm trying to get better. I'm actually trying. I know, Dad said, and his voice cracked slightly on the last word. I don't know. I get scared. I don't know how to help without making it worse. That honesty made my chest ache, because it didn't erase the damage, but explained the sigh. The sigh wasn't just annoyance. It was fear, helplessness, years of emotional illiteracy stacked on top of each other. I need you to stop letting them talk to me like that, I said, quietly but firmly. If you want me in your life, you can't sigh like I'm the issue and let them take swings. Dad was quiet. Then, okay, he said, like the word cost him something. Okay, I'll try. Try. Not promise. Not miracle. But it was something. Mom texted later with a long paragraph about tone and timing and family respect. I didn't reply. Not because I'm trying to punish her. Because if I replied, I'd be dragged back into the same loop. Me explaining my humanity. Her accusing me of excuses. I don't know what the next brunch looks like. Maybe I won't go. Maybe I'll go, and the second someone says excuses, I'll stand up again. Maybe Dad will actually say, stop. Maybe Mom will learn that hosting doesn't mean controlling. Maybe my aunt will find a new target. All I know is this. I'm done trying to prove my pain is legitimate to people who benefit from calling it an excuse. I'm done letting my father's tired sigh be the soundtrack to my humiliation. If they want me in the family, they can have me as a person, not a cautionary tale, not a project, not a table topic served alongside eggs and sarcasm. And if they can't, then I'd rather eat alone in peace than share a table with people who only feel close to me when they're looking down.